Bizarre encounters with telepathic dogman. One of the most mysterious creatures that has gained a bit of a following in recent years is what's commonly referred to as the dogman. Much as its name suggests, these entities are usually described as being very tall, bipedal, and covered with shaggy hair, much like the more well-known Sasquatch. But in this case, they also have pointed muzzles and features that are very canine in nature. Spotted in many regions in the United States, these dogmen are a bizarre phenomenon that manages to teeter where the lines of Bigfoot, werewolves, the paranormal, and urban legends intersect. But taking things deeper into the strange are the various reports that suggest these beings utilize the mental power of telepathy as well. One very interesting and quite bizarre such account comes from a witness who posted her experience on the site Truth Seeker Highway, claiming that she has regular telepathic contact with a dogman calling itself Tulak. This entity was first encountered by the witness in the rugged Sandia Mountains in New Mexico, where she was out for a hike one day with her fiancé Michael. At one point during their peaceful walk, her fiancé suddenly called out, "Be careful, there's a bear ahead." Looking forward, she saw what he was talking about. It was a hulking brown shape that could be seen and heard crashing through a thicket. Seeing a bear out there was quite unexpected, but what's even stranger was what allegedly happened next. The witness said, "As I watched this bear run away, out of some trees and to the right, I saw a very strange, and I mean very strange person, walking, going the opposite direction of the bear. Its stride was something like I'd never seen a normal person do. For every step it took, there must have been at least 4 to 5 feet between each step, which means whatever I was looking at was very tall. Its back was hunched over, and at first I thought that it may be carrying a backpack. I mean, my mind was going 100 miles a minute, trying to figure out exactly what I was looking at. Then I realized it wasn't a backpack. It was the man's back. Then I saw how strange the color of this man was. At this point, I had no idea that I wasn't looking at a man. Whatever this thing was gray, purple, and dark brown. It didn't turn around to look at me, but kept going at a very fast pace, walking down eventually what I saw was a path. I said to Michael how weird this fellow was, but he couldn't see him. I pointed to the location of where he went, and as we walked in that direction, that's when this horrible feeling hit us both right in the gut. Something told us both to stay back. It was a clear message, but one that for some strange reason I was willing to ignore, but Michael was not. I wanted to go down the path further, but he said it was too dangerous. I must say, the feeling in our gut was like a punch, almost a nauseating feeling. It affected our heart rates, and our adrenaline was racing. I could feel my heart all over my body. It was at that point that I decided to take photos in the direction the strange hiker had gone. It was in one of these photos that we captured what turned out to be a dogman. He was standing there watching us as we were trying to figure out what to do next. We didn't smell him at all. He didn't have any odor, not any more than a bear would. But I must say, we sure did feel him. Even after they got home, the witness says she maintained a sort of psychic connection with this spooky entity, and that she learned a lot of new and surprising things through this odd connection. One thing that she claimed she was able to glean from her exchanges with Tulak is that despite their fierce appearance, these dogmen are not violent or vicious creatures at all. She would say, "Tulak has relayed interesting information to me. The most obvious is that they don't like humans. They understand their place in the forest, and they don't put out their threatening stance to other animals in the forest except when they hunt. As far as how they interact with each other, he stated that they have a common understanding. He prefers his solitude and says he doesn't like to associate with any particular group, but he does know of their movements, and he is aware of their territory and boundaries. He was to me obviously intelligent beyond just a beast in the woods. He is extremely distrustful of people, as most cryptids are. He didn't go into more detail than that, but I'm pretty sure that what we see on TV with the werewolf movies isn't even close." Tulak said that he and a large brown bear had been palling around for years. People put human issues and temperaments to other creatures and beings that have nothing to do with them at all. An encounter with a road troll, 1981. Gary Durbin of Illinois was traveling through a remote stretch of road through Tyson Mountain in Arkansas, just east of the Ouachita National Forest, carrying a load of chickens headed toward Chicago. The drive was a rather dangerous one. It was dark, with numerous hairpin turns to navigate, and at one point, he passed what looked like a hairy, devilish-looking homeless man with a peg leg standing forlornly at the corner of one of these treacherous turns. He thought it was strange to see the guy on the road, but he didn't pay much attention at first. He figured this guy must have wanted to get hit by a car because he was standing in the worst place ever. Durbin kept driving, but little did he know this wouldn't be the last time that he would come across this mysterious stranger. He eventually reached a truck stop and decided to take a break for a cup of coffee. After his quick break, he hit the road again and crossed over into Missouri. He stopped at a rest area as he was leaving, and he couldn't believe his eyes. There was that same weird guy with this hairy body and this wooden peg leg, just standing there staring at him. Durbin was shocked, and he couldn't understand how this guy had gotten so far ahead of him. It was very unsettling. But here's the really strange part. Durbin would end up seeing this bizarre creature 5 more times in different places, like Texas, Missouri, and even Florida. Still to this day, he can't figure out what it's all about. Durbin describes this creature as being really tall, around 6 feet 6 inches tall, and he has a wooden peg leg right above his knee, and his whole face is covered in long, light brown hair, and he has a beard. He always wears ripped clothes that look the same every time he sees him, and he always carries a little hobo bag with him everywhere he goes. Strange beast reported by Western Oklahoma residents, 1983. Since that winter day when he saw an animal he can't name, Billy Parry always arms himself with a deer rifle whenever he goes across the creek to feed his hogs. Just a couple of days before snow and ice laced western Oklahoma this winter, Billy, a 15-year-old high school freshman, was out scouting for coyote tracks along the Trail Creek near his home south of Vichy when a growl made him stop. The noise came from an animal standing on 2 legs about 20 yards away, he says. Frightened, the young hunter dashed to his parked car and drove away. It was 4 or 5 feet tall and pretty wide, says Parry, an avid outdoorsman and hunter. It stood upright and had kind of a brownish-red hair color. Reports of the unidentified creature in western Oklahoma by the Parry family and others in Dewey County aren't the first in Oklahoma. In 1977, search parties were formed after similar beings were reported in eastern Oklahoma near Bristow and Stillwell, but nothing was found. The Parry family says the animal prowled on their property and near their house for more than a month this winter. It was an animal only Billy saw clearly, an animal that he says smelled like a sewer. Hair samples found by the Parry's house were sent to Hayden Hughes, director of Sasquatch Investigations of Mid-America. The hair samples looked very interesting. At this point, we cannot confirm what kind of animal it came from, Hughes said. He said an investigative sample is being forwarded to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation's forensic lab in hopes of analysis. I feel it's just a matter of time before Bigfoot is captured alive, Hughes said. When we do, in my opinion, we won't find the missing link, but an intelligent creature that has been pushed back into the wilderness and forced to migrate. Dewey County Sheriff Larry Pike, on the other hand, said that he's heard only rumors about this strange animal, but nothing official, not that I can recollect. Sightings have also been reported in nearby backyards in Roger Mills County. Lauren Dameron, a state game ranger in that county, says the animal was reportedly sighted within 2 to 3 miles of his house. He lives southwest of Cheyenne. In recent interviews, the Parry family told that the strange animal disrupted their lives for more than a month after Billy came home from his initial encounter and said, "I saw a Bigfoot today." Billy's father said that he originally thought his son must have been mistaken about what he saw. Billy didn't say much of anything. He listened to me, and when I got through talking, he picked up his gun and went out to feed his pigs, said Lonnie Parry. I didn't change his mind at all. About a week later, Billy's 2-year-old sister Melissa became hysterical when she was frightened after seeing a bear in the window. Pari and his son immediately got their rifles and circled the house, each going a different way. They both smelled an odor like a sewer, but didn't see an animal. A few days later, while hunting for a coyote, Pari heard a barking noise and then saw a coyote running towards a strange animal, but he couldn't get a clear shot at it. When the coyote arrived at the place where the animal was barking, there was a terrible fight with growls and screams. The coyote only yipped a couple of times. There wasn't much of a fight to it. The coyote didn't last long, Pari said. The next day, Pari found the spot where something had made short work of the coyote. There was assorted amounts of coyote hair in the spot the size of a card table, he said. The animal had to be pretty quick to have caught the coyote in an open place. But that wasn't the last visit from this strange creature at Trail Creek. Late one night, a heavy animal ran around the north corner of the house. Mrs. Pari was in the north bedroom and Pari in the living room on the south end of the house, watching a late-night movie, when they both heard footsteps. The dogs met at the corner of the house and they briefly tangled. Reddish-brown hair with a strong odor was found there later. The very next night, the animal came back and Mrs. Pari heard the running around the house. "If I hadn't have been there and you told me this story, I'd thought that you were goofy," Pari said. In the meantime, Billy noticed the sewer odor around the pig pen and heard something crunching through the bush. Billy claimed that he could smell the sewer odor stronger than the smell of the hogs. The very next day, on Saturday, Billy and some of his friends went out hunting for the animal, and they did the same thing on Sunday. 7 or 8 men came out on Monday to hunt for the animal, but they found nothing outside of some tracks along the creek. A month later, a little more than 40 miles southwest as the crow flies, Alex Inman and his son-in-law saw an animal they can't explain. The 2 men were feeding their cows southwest of Cheyenne when they saw a creature that was bigger and broader than a dog would be. The dark-haired animal didn't have much of a neck. Its head was pretty much sit down on its shoulders, Inman said, and it walked on 4 legs. The men had pulled down into the pasture and started honking the horn to the pickup to call the cattle in to feed. They only caught a glimpse of it broadside before it headed directly away from them. They said that it didn't seem to be afraid of them and it wasn't in any big hurry. They had plenty of time to get a good look at it, even though it was quite a ways off. The men said while it was moving on all 4s, it stood higher than a coyote, and it was dark brown and wide, and didn't look like anything they had seen before. It wasn't fuzzy or furry, but it had slick hair like a pig. It moved very smoothly and didn't have any bounce in its step at all, and it was very heavy. The 2 men watched the creature until it disappeared into heavy bush. People won't mention things for fear of being laughed at, says Geneva Sasser of Cheyenne. But she says about 5 or 6 years ago, something was digging at the foundation of her house near Cheyenne, but no one dared to venture out to see what it was. She said there were growls and angry noises coming from the animal, and it went to the kitchen window where the light was on. When she turned that light out and another one on, the animal went from the dark window and came to the lighted one. The next morning she went out to check for tracks, and the animal had tried to dig under the foundation instead of trying to get into the window. The tracks looked like dog tracks, but they were as big as a man's hand. There were no claw marks in the tracks, but you could clearly see the claw marks where the animal had dug against the house. Eventually, whatever it was, finally gave up and went away. If there's no connection between these sightings, the similarities appear to be remarkable coincidences. More than one person has described the tracks to be shaped like a dog track, but with very large toes. Each witness account noted that the animal exhibited no fear of humans. Perhaps the most common denominator of these different stories are the way that they were told. Each witness showed a great deal of reluctance about telling their story of seeing something that they can't explain. Each one weighed the chance of being laughed at and told their story in spite of it.